Chapter 8. By midday, the wind had grown steadily stronger and was now gusting around force 5. Thick black clouds filled the sky, and Mac felt the pressure drop as he returned across the killing ground with the bow. The temperature dropped with it, and he shivered. Fortunately, only 2 guns arrived at once. Tomo came back half an hour after them. Mac's plan had been to get Tomo and Half-Screw delayed by engaging them in conversation. Ricky and Half-Screw came to the gate together. Lenny had seen them approaching and given the signal. Mac and James had gone indoors to set up position near the hallway to Ricky's wing. Ali and Pascal waited by the gate with tea and cake, one of Half-Screw's weaknesses. As hoped for, Ricky came in by himself and turned down the hall to his gun locker. Mac stepped out of the alcove, an arrow already nocked, took aim and shot it into Ricky's back. The impact knocked him forwards and off balance, onto one knee. However, as Mac had expected, he recovered quickly and turned, his rifle in both hands, looking to get a retaliatory shot off quickly. Mac had to allow for a shell in the chamber, but the safety on. He had chosen the narrow corridor because it would delay Ricky turning around, allowing him a second arrow. He knew the second shot would have to be a killing shot, or at the very least, hit a vital area. Ricky was massive and strong. He could probably withstand any number of superficial injuries, and would instinctively know his only hope of survival was to quickly catch and kill Mac. Mac had already nocked another arrow, but didn't remember doing it. Time had slowed down, and was moving frame by frame. Outside, he sensed a drop in pressure. The wind had become stronger, and the window frames were rattling. But something didn't fit Mac's forecast. Ricky wasn't turning around quickly enough. His movements were laboured, and Mac could hear each breath rasping. Quickly, he put another arrow in the same area of Ricky's broad back. It plunged home with a satisfying sound, and drew a cry of pain from Ricky. He fell to his knees, but forced himself back up again, and this time managed to turn towards Mac. He was panting. The effort to stay upright was taking all his strength. The rifle barrel was pointing at the floor as Mac released a third arrow high into his chest. Another satisfying thud and shout of shock and pain. The rifle hit the floor. Ricky swayed for a second, then fell as his legs collapsed beneath him. For another second he was sitting upright and seemed to be looking directly at Mac, though there was no light in his eyes. Then his body slumped backwards to lie lengthways on the hallway he had ruled from. Mac exhaled and stood watching, heart pounding. There was no sound or sign of life from Ricky. He drew the fourth arrow back, or another he couldn't remember knocking, and aimed at the body. "Go get the rifle," he told James. James approached the body warily, leading with the hand axe he'd been holding all along. There was no movement from Ricky. He checked for a neck pulse. "He's dead." James picked up the rifle. "Pass it to me," Mac ordered, taking the gun from James. "We haven't finished. I still need you to back me. Go and give Pascal the nod to let Half-Screw come inside. Be nearby when he comes in." James nodded and went outside. Soon afterwards, Half-Screw came through the outside door and turned down the hallway. He stopped cold at the sight of Ricky's body and swore. "Freeze," Mac said to his back. He noted peripherally that James had come in, but kept his eyes front. "Listen, Half-Screw. You don't have to worry. I don't plan to kill you. But I can't let you keep the rifle. Not right now, anyway. Don't turn around. Slowly stand it up against the wall to your right. Half-Screw slowly relinquished his rifle and waited until James had taken it before turning to face them. I already know that you, Tomo, and Ricky were out there trying to find and kill me. Now Ricky's dead, and I'm holding the guns. Mac spoke calmly, even gently. He didn't want Half-Screw to feel threatened if he could help it. What I need to know right now, Mac said firmly, is whether you can handle this or not. He drew a half circle with his hand to indicate Ricky's dead body, with himself and James holding the guns. Half-Screw's whole world had changed in a moment. He might need time to accept it. Half-Screw didn't answer. His face was unreadable. I guess not, Mac answered for him. Pass me your weapons. I'll lock them up for now. We can talk when you're ready. Huh, Half-Screw snorted. What is there to talk about? He sounded fatalistic. What there is to talk about is how things have changed here and how you'll fit into that. Oh yeah? You need to get used to how it is. Half-Screw shrugged, defeated, accepting, his eyes flickering between Mac and Ricky's dead body. He looked lost. His mouth hung open, his face was pale and bloodless. There would be no fight from him. Outside the window, a jagged bolt of lightning split the sky. A moment later came an ear-splitting peal of thunder, and the heavens opened. Soon after this, Lenny came running through. Tomo's coming back, he said, breathless. Are you going to kill him? As he spoke, his jaw dropped and his face became instantly white. And what about me? He shook as he spoke. What? Mac said, momentarily thrown. Oh, I see. There'll be no more killing, Lenny. We'll all be pulling together from now on. Come with me to the gate. Tomo banged on the gate's solid planks. The sound reverberated around the eerily empty, open courtyard. The sky was gunmetal grey, seen through the driving rain, and frequently lit by forks of lightning, filling the space between heaven and earth. Only Mac and Lenny were by the gate. Everyone else had withdrawn under cover. No one could be seen or heard. Lenny, it's me. Tomo, let me in. I'm soaking wet. Yeah, Tomo, listen. There's someone needs to talk to you, Lenny called out at the gate. Yeah? Tomo sounded suspicious. Who's that then? It's me, Tomo, Mac said. There was silence from the other side. Tomo, Mac began. Here goes. There's some things you need to know. Mac realised later there'd been a hole in his plan. He'd assumed Ricky would return to the manor house soon after he'd spoken to the group. Instead, it had been hours later, and all the nerve he'd mustered had long faded by the time he'd come back. He ran over the last 5 minutes' events in his mind and shuddered at what might have gone wrong. His hands shook, and he realised he couldn't even keep his grip on the rifle. He tried to loop it over his shoulder, but his muscles wouldn't obey. Mac, you're shaking, he heard Ali call out as she rushed over to him. Bring him a cup of tea, would you? She asked Pascal. I'll take him into the kitchen. No, everybody else leave him be. I mean it. She raised her voice in exasperation. He needs to be quiet for a bit. Let him breathe. You can all thank him later. We all owe him. She led Mac into the kitchen and gently lowered him into a farmhouse chair. Pascal followed, and Mac heard the kettle filling with water. And I will be showing you how much I appreciate what you just did for us, Mac. Later, though. Chapter 9. Dinner time that evening saw a manor house transformed. As the news of Ricky's death spread, people congregated in the dining room until everyone was there, chatting, laughing and joking. Joan, cooking in the kitchen, had more offers of help than she could use. The floor was swept clean as a whistle. Jam jars of flowers appeared on the tables, and women cleaned the windows inside and out, letting the sun shine in. The whole room looked bright, clean and new, like a classroom on the first day back at school. Everyone was seated long before the meal was served. I was going to ask if everyone wouldn't mind if we all ate together tonight. But I didn't have to. Mac had opened. Earlier, he'd stopped shaking after 2 strong mugs of tea and the right kind of attention and fuss from Ali and Pascal. Mac, what did you mean earlier when you said, "Will you have our backing?" James asked. Do you mean you're going to be in charge now? Well, not in charge exactly. I wouldn't dream of that. I mean, who am I? But I do have some good ideas about what we need to do to move forwards, to make this place more like a farm, to become real survivors. Who do you think you're fooling? Nobody in charge, Pet called out, scorn dripping. It'll be no better than before. What? You ungrateful, idiotic... Mac bit back his temper and forced himself to take a deep breath. Of course it will be better, he said more reasonably. Can't you see that? Pet's face was poker. Mac blinked and studied her more closely. You can't really think that. Are you poking fun at me? Pet folded her arms and cocked her head. Her expression was unmoved. Mac began. For a start, nobody's threatening to beat you up if you don't do what you're told. Or make you go to bed with someone you don't want to be their reward, Bindi called out, looking at Pet and the other younger women. Too right. How is that not better, you silly mare? Judy demanded. Heads nodded their agreement. Remember what I told you all this morning? Pascal stepped forward to demand. We can all be still alive next year. If certain things happen next, we will be. Isn't that better? Way better than where we would have been. The room hummed with the buzz of agreement. So, Mac continued, nodding thank yous to the women who'd backed him. Tonight we should talk about how we're going to get there. He began to outline his ideas, starting with broad strokes. Self-sufficiency, livestock, crops, and generating their own power. Oh, and I nearly forgot, we must have regular treats and celebrations. We could make our own beer and wine. Somebody must know how to do that. Yes, called out several at once. We've already started. Ali, who was sitting to Mac's left, leaned over him and quietened him with a kiss. There were a few claps and whistles and 1 or 2 ribald comments. Hush, honey. That's plenty to be going on with. Let's eat. There were more cheers as, on cue, Joan and Nicola brought in an armful of plates each. Then, as they often did, asked one of the men to carry in the heavy casserole pot. Pascal, who'd seated herself to Mac's right, stood up and took a dish for him, handing it to Joan to be filled first. Let us have 3 cheers for our hero, Mac, she announced, placing the plate in front of him, and while bending forward, gave him a much longer kiss than Ali's. Mac noticed James, sitting next to Tiggy at the table opposite, giving him a knowing grin. He responded discreetly with an eyebrow shrug as he felt Ali reach under the table and slide her hand up his thigh. Mac clapped his hands for attention at the end of the meal, and everybody looked up and stopped talking. He felt a little relief at that good sign. Okay, everybody, he began. Here's something to prove to you that things are going to be very different. Everyone followed him from the dining room, out into the main hall and up Ricky and his harem's bedroom corridor. Most had never been this way, and he heard hushed, almost awed voices behind him. Once in one of the master bedrooms, he opened a sliding wardrobe to reveal a floor-to-ceiling gun safe. He unhooked a cord from around his neck, upon which dangled a set of keys. He couldn't resist a magician's flourish as he unlocked the outer and inner doors and threw them open to reveal Ricky's impressive gun collection. "Have you two ever seen this?" Mac asked Tomo and Half-Screw. Both shook their heads. "We'll all need to carry a gun tonight for the plan I've got in mind," announced Mac. "Get some rest tonight. We'll be off before first light tomorrow." The following morning at dawn, Nicola walked up to the first locked gate which opened onto the concreted yard in front of the Danes' farmhouse. She stood in plain sight of a wooden garden shed where there was usually a Dane sentry post. She waved a white flag on a broom handle high above her head, deliberately making it snap as she cracked it like a whip. The rising sun lit up the barbed wire wrapped around the gate's top bar, turning it to silver and white. Mac breathed a silent prayer for success as he saw a man briefly step out from the shed and walk over to her. He and one platoon were out of sight, hidden in the scrub wood behind the farm's outer dry stone wall. They'd walked up Cranberry Clough Lane, the farm track that connected their two settlements, and hidden there in the hour before dawn. A second group were within the wood that sat on the opposite side of the stream, running alongside the track. Joan would never have allowed her little Nicola to take the note to the Danes on her own, although they'd set it up to look that way. That was a calculated risk, Mac had explained, but it was only a risk that they might try to kidnap and ransom, or possibly just keep the child. Neither Mac nor anyone else expected Nicola would be shot, as one of the men would certainly be if a lone sentry saw him walking up. "That's why it has to be Nicola," Mac had entreated Joan. "She's the only innocent we can send. They'd be suspicious of anybody else. Hopefully this will show them we're genuine." Joan was torn in two. "Yes, but what if you're wrong?" Her arms were wrapped protectively about the girl. "What if they try to take her inside and keep her?" Mac looked over at Tomo, who tapped the barrel of his rifle. "When I was trying out for the Marines, they tested our sharpshooting as part of selection. I scored in the top 10. That was all I was good enough at, though, so I never got in," he shrugged. "Still, I got further than most," he grinned. "They'd have to unlock the gate first to grab her up. We can tell her to run back to us if anyone made a move like that. I popped them before they even got the gate open. They wouldn't get within 10 feet of her." "Yep," Mac confirmed. "We hope it won't come to that, of course. But if it does, we'll know they can't ever be trusted." Mac switched his attention back to the present as he saw Nicola take out the note and pass it over the gate to the sentry. He read it and said something to her. Then he turned and walked back into the main farmhouse. When she turned and walked towards them, he heard everyone's breath expel at once. She walked down the farm track, and as she passed Mac's hiding place, without slowing down or turning her head, she said, "He said to go back home, love. I'll figure out what to do with this." She continued towards the manor house, continuing the pretense she'd been on her own. Chapter 10. Mac and the Dane group's Alpha weighed each other up in the centre of the wooden footbridge that crossed Cranberry Clough. Mac's men were spread out along the river's west bank on both sides of the bridge. Tomo and James stood above him, further up the steep rise on that side. They were both armed with rifles. The Danes mirrored them, but stood on the track, level with the water. Both sides could observe the other fully, and neither position gave an advantage. It was as close to a negotiating table as was possible. The two men eyed one another, each taking the other's measure. The air was still. No birdsong lightened the tension. The only sound was the water flowing under the bridge. Its normally chatty, laughing voice seemed subdued, even cautionary. Mac reached out his hand. "Mac," he offered. "Gary." They shook hands. "You've picked a good spot, I'll give you that. And you got my attention with your note. Don't come if you're not serious about wanting peace, because we are, and we give our word to this. We are serious about making peace. Like I said, too many of us have died." "Well, you're right about that. I was only saying just that—" Gary was interrupted by his second, a short, stocky skinhead with sunglasses on. "One of you killed one of my mates a few nights ago. I want to know who it was," he growled with menace. He wore a grey t-shirt rolled up to show thick, tattooed biceps. Gary held up a hand, and Simon stood back with a frown, his eyebrows furrowed. "Simon, Mac won't think we want peace if you talk like that. He'll wonder if we haven't come up here on false pretenses." "Yeah, well, I want to know who killed Paddy," Simon seethed. The muscles in his neck tensed and his face reddened. "I'll see him, just him and me, and then we can have a truce." "Simon!" Gary snapped. Heads turned from the men on both sides, even those facing one another across the babbling stream. "Not another word," he warned. Mac looked from Gary to Simon and back. He wasn't sure what to make of the exchange. Was it an act? Was there real discord between the leaders? A power struggle? "We've lost plenty of our men too," Mac said firmly. "And women." He let that sentence sink in. "But we'd both have to start a fresh slate and forget them. Well, not forget them," he stumbled, but... Gary interrupted. "Yep, we know what you mean. Simon knows too. You don't have to spell it out. We get it." He paused as an idea struck him. "Where's the big guy? You know, that giant. I always thought he was the boss." Mac hesitated. He's not... He's..." James jumped in. "Never mind where he is right now. We haven't got all our eggs in one basket, and I bet you haven't either." Gary didn't acknowledge the answer. "So how many men have you got now? What about women?" "We'll keep that to ourselves for the moment," Mac countered. "What we're here for is to make peace, so both of us keep all the men and women we do have." The men walked confidently back down the lane. The spring morning sunshine washed over their smiling faces as they laughed and joked. An hour or so of negotiations had borne bountiful fruit. A truce in principle was in place. Both camps had identified mutual needs the other community might be able to meet. Medicine, gunsmithing, motor repairs, tool swapping and repairs, even apprenticeships had been suggested. "So they'll bring a cart later today to pick up the body," Tomo confirmed, out of breath as he caught up the group after finalising details with two of the Danes. "They'll come this way, by Cranberry Clough Lane, obviously, so just be aware they're coming." "It's a good job it's been dry the last few days," Mac said. "It would be a mud bath otherwise. They probably wouldn't get through." "It's the only route that will take a cart. Quicker than going through the woods and over the hills. That used to take us hours, though, on foot, carrying a bag full of eggs and chickens." "Yes, we won't be able to do that anymore," James said. "No," Tomo agreed, laughing, "but it doesn't matter. I brought back a few live ones, didn't I? So we've already got a supply of eggs." Max smiled to himself as he listened to the bright voices. His actions had paid off more successfully than he'd ever dared to hope. The group had listened to his ideas. Confidence and hope were sky high. And two gorgeous young women were vying with each other for him. He frowned as he watched Ali and Julie step out of a forestry stand where they must have been hiding to watch the negotiations. They jogged across the grass to join the men. "Tonight, over tea," Mac said, "we'll have a chat about some of their ideas and whether we like them. You know, we send Half Screw to repair their guns, and they send their diesel mechanic to get our Land Rovers working." "Yeah, and I fancy learning about motor mechanics," piped up Lenny. "That's what I wanted to do, before." "Stuff that," Julie cut in. "I want to know when we're having the first party. Some hunky guys were standing guard on them rocks." Everybody laughed. "They might have women waiting for them at home, cautioned Ali. "For all we know, they have the same problem as we do. Not enough men and too many women." "I'll take my chance," Julie replied. "What her indoors don't know won't hurt her." "What did that note say, Mac?" James asked. "Whatever you wrote, it did the trick." Ali drew a slip of paper out of her pocket. It had the rough notes that a small group had worked on last night. "Something like this," she said, and started to read. "We're from the Manor House group one of your men didn't return from 2 nights ago. We want to meet with you to see if we can make peace with each other. Too many of us have already died. There's no good reason for us to be at war. We want to negotiate a truce, possibly an alliance, maybe even trade. We'll start with a truce. Meet with our leader and some others in 2 hours. We have found a safe place for 2 sides to talk. It's halfway between our houses. We've drawn a map below. Bring as many men as you wish. Bring arms, although you won't need them. We are also armed. Don't come if you're not serious about wanting peace, because we are, and we give our word to this." Chapter 11. By the time they all returned to the manor house, it was only mid-morning. James helped Mac carry the guns back to the cabinet. "Are you going to tell everyone to get into those work groups you were telling us about last night?" he asked Mac. "Eh? Why do I need to do that? People can organise themselves, can't they? Why would they need me bossing them about?" James looked puzzled. He indicated with a wave of his hand the men and the women aimlessly sitting around or chatting in the manor house garden. A cloud passed overhead, casting a shadow over the peaceful scene. "Because nobody's moving. Nobody's doing anything." "I expect they will soon. We all agreed on the jobs that should be priorities, didn't we?" Some of us did, anyway. "I'm just going to see the searchers off. You'll see, they'll get working soon." The previous evening, Mac had asked for volunteers to investigate the land south and west of Danebridge. "I think it might be helpful to know if there are any people living nearby. Perhaps farming, or if there's lots of empty land. With luck, there'll be some chickens we can bring back. Would anybody like to try?" Tomo had volunteered, so had James, who had needed less than a day to begin spreading his wings. Mac asked them both to choose someone else to take along as a companion. Tomo chose Ellen, and James took Tiggy. Mac wondered if the 2 couples had already made a connection, and secretly paired off. But like he and Ali hadn't dared to act on it because of Ricky. The day was still warm, but a drop in pressure gave the promise of rain. Mac watched the 2 groups walk away. Ali brought him a steaming mug of fruit tea, and they watched the 4 figures from the sentry tower until their view was blocked by a copse. "They could cover so much more ground if we had mountain bikes," Mac remarked. "Trial bikes would be even better if we had them," Ali said. "And petrol, of course," she added. Mac snorted. "We even had to beg and borrow raincoats and rucksacks for that search party. Petrol and motorbikes. If only." "Mac," Ali began anxiously, "now you're in charge, we are going to make it, aren't we?" "In charge?" Mac repeated. "I'm not in charge of anybody, Ali. He paused. "I didn't kill Ricky just so I could take over from him. We're all free now. There are no more Lord and Lady Mucks. In that note you said you were our leader." "Oh, that. that was just for show. If the Danes thought we had no leader now, they'd probably take us over, like they've been trying to since we came here. Or was it later than that? He furrowed his brow, searching for the memory. It doesn't matter when it was. Being occupied by them would be even worse than under Ricky. What about last night then, around the dinner table and this morning, organising James and Tomo, giving them maps and instructions? They asked me to. I was just suggesting the areas I thought they could try first. People have been messing about a lot. We wasted so much time before. I'm not trying to boss anyone about. Not that I would know how to. Someone else can do the organising tomorrow. People can figure out for themselves what their skills are, what they're good at and not good at. We'll find a way together. Ali looked doubtful. Just suppose they don't, she said anxiously. Suppose they're not all as resourceful as you. Not everybody has initiative. I've worked with some right duffers. Resourceful? Initiative? Thanks, Ali. It's nice of you to say and all, but you mustn't go building me up. I'm just the same as everybody else. And I don't know anything about any of this. I can't promise you that we're going to survive, Ali. I wish I could, but there's so many things that we need and don't have. What kind of things? Mac looked at her. His mind hadn't stopped since he'd killed Ricky. He saw ideas for improvement everywhere, and just as quickly saw the obstacles in their way. Where do I start? If we're going to make it, we'd need long-term food supplies, not just living hand-to-mouth like we are now. Can't we manage that now? Ali said. We'll all be working together now, won't we? Maybe, Mac answered. I hope we will. But even if we do, I don't know if we've got enough people with enough know-how. And we certainly don't all have the materials we'd need. Such as? For a start, where are our vegetables going to come from once the tins in Joan's larder have run out? Can't we just grow some? We've got enough land, haven't we? Do we have any seeds? Ricky wasn't interested in farming or growing anything, so probably not. And if we had some polytunnels, like on River Cottage, that'd increase our fruit and vegetable yield immensely, but we'd have to find some or build some. I don't know what any of the men did before, but some must have had gardens, mustn't they? Ali asked. And some must have been handymen around the house. Yeah, I suppose so. And we need better heating this winter, and cooking fuel as well. If we had supplies of propane, we could permanently set that up in Joan's kitchen. And if we had petrol... He paused, his face screwed up in concentration. Yes, petrol and diesel would fuel a generator, like I often said to Ricky. But we'd be able to do so much more than that. Chainsaws, rotavators. Electricity would mean we could set up a ham radio station and communicate with other survivors. Mac, you've got loads of ideas, plans. You know what we need to do so that we can survive this year and next year too. You've got to be the one in charge. I've no idea how to be in charge of anybody, Ali, and I don't want to order anybody around. Just think, under Ricky, all we ever did was what he ordered us to. Nobody had any choice, darling, she said, slipping her arm through his. Ricky was too controlling, too paranoid. If anybody had shown any initiative, he'd have thought they were trying to take over. Remember what happened to you? I'm not likely to forget, Mac answered ruefully. And some of us had a few good ideas we were allowed. Things Ricky didn't find threatening, like home brewing and Alex and Tiggy's vegetable garden. And don't forget about Joan and Nicola. Better than nothing, Mac conceded, but we've got all these people to feed, and almost nothing we need to get there. Like what? Ali asked. How long have you got? Mac asked, spreading his empty hands. We've got a lake and a river, but nothing to fish with. Vehicles with no fuel. Fields, but no staples. We're going to get sick and injured, but there's no doctor or hospital. We've got broken equipment, beds, windows, but no workshop and barely any tools. We've got nobody with any experience of farming, of animals, He threw his hands up. "Can't we all pull together now and you lead us?" Alice said, panic lacing her voice. "At least you've got the ideas. You know where we need to be travelling." Mac made a face and shrugged doubtfully. "I'll have to, won't I? I mean, who else is there? It was me killed Ricky, after all, so—" "And thank heavens you did," Ali interrupted. "That's why we all believe in you. That's why Tomo and James went where you sent them this morning. That's why, when we go back inside, if you tell everybody else what you want from them—" "But I'm not Ricky," Mac interrupted. "I'm not going to threaten anybody if they won't do what I say." He stopped mid-sentence, lifting his face to the white cirrus clouds slicing through the powder blue sky. "All right, maybe you've got something," he said. "Perhaps if I can just explain it to everyone properly, get through to them somehow, I can convince them to follow my example," he continued, speaking to himself. "Convince them I've got a good plan, that I'm worthy, or worth listening to at least. If I can just bring everyone with me, if I show everyone they have a voice, that I'm not just another Ricky, or a tyrant, or someone lording it over everybody." Pascal walked over from the kitchen and heard Mac's musings. She interrupted him. "I might have known you would be holding his hand while he talks all this self-defeating, hand-wringing nonsense." She looked witheringly at Ali. Chapter 12. She reached up and took Mac firmly by the shoulders and brought him around to face her. "Stop doubting yourself. You already have what it takes. If the others are too stupid to see that, don't waste your efforts trying to convince them. Take the lead with confidence and get everyone else working. Tell them what you want and show them you expect them to do it." Mac turned away from her, his face pained and conflicted, looking around the compound. He saw Alex and Tiggy working their vegetable garden. Alex wheelbarrowing compost he then forked into the soil, and Tiggy filling the watering can from the water butt she'd connected to one of the drain pipes. Smoke from the chimney meant Joan had begun boiling water and cooking. Nicola gave him a cheery wave as she carried a bucket to the well. Cynthia and Lenny were sawing firewood with a cross-cut saw they'd found in the outbuildings. "Mac," Pascal began, an edge to her voice, "remind me of the most important jobs we all talked about last night." "Let's see. There was making the hen house completely secure from foxes, going hunting with the rifles for, whatever we can find, deer, pig, pheasants. And whoever was left after that was going to—" Mac stopped. "Why do you ask, hon?" "Voila!" Pascal dramatically spread both arms wide, indicating, with theatrical hand flourishes, the men and women aimlessly sitting around or chatting in the manor house garden. The clouds above thickened, darkening the ground. "You didn't sort them into groups to get started on those jobs, did you?" "I don't get you, Pascal. Telling people what to do, is that what you mean?" "Organizing them is what I mean. Like placing a man or an older woman with a youngster to help them do those tasks that need some know-how." "No, that's right, I didn't." "So what?" "For heaven's sake," she gasped. "Look around you. Nobody is doing any of those jobs." "Right. I thought they'd have got going by now. I wonder why they haven't." The sound of guitar and flute trickled from an upstairs window. Pascal snorted. "See?" She looked at the window. "But I don't know what skills everybody has, or what jobs they're most interested in doing. They can decide those things themselves. I mean, choose a workmate, set up a work party, decide what they're best suited to." "Obviously, they can't," Pascal said with satisfaction, again indicating the stillness around them. "They don't need me ordering them about," protested Mac. "That would be just like it was before, under Ricky." "Nonsense," slapped Pascal. "It will be nothing like Ricky. Max shook his head, unable to answer. But, damn, Pascal erupted. If you won't kick their backsides, then I will have to. She marched into the house. Mac heard a loud clanging noise travel up the stairs and through the house, accompanied by Pascal ordering everyone outside. She emerged from the other side of the manor house, banging a saucepan with a wooden spoon, keeping it up until most had emerged to mill around the garden area, some buttoning their clothes and others grumbling to one another. Pascal climbed onto a raised vegetable bed and banged the saucepan again until everybody was looking at her. "Listen up," she ordered. "Last night we all agreed we'd be pulling together, working at all those jobs Mac told you we needed to do if we are to survive. Survive, I said, the opposite of dying. Perhaps you would rather starve and freeze. Perhaps you would rather play the flute instead." She gave a withering look at Anna. "But we've been waiting for Mac to tell us what to do. I thought he'd organise us into those groups we talked about yesterday." Pascal rolled her eyes heavenward. She turned and glowered at Mac, then chin-nodded at the waiting group. Her expression said, "I'm right about them and you're wrong. Mac thought you would organise yourselves into work parties. I told him you wouldn't. You needed him to do it." She left a pause. "Mac," she turned again to him, this time smiling, "please get these willing workers started. They only need some direction from the one who knows where we need to get to." She turned back to the group. "Some of you must have expected to be working in the city today. Go and put on some working clothes and boots." All right, everybody," Mac opened. "Just to make it clear, somebody else can do the organising tomorrow. Each person can figure out what their skills are, what they're good at and not good at. We'll find a way to work together, cooperatively. Or maybe I should say collectively. Anyway, I'll do it just for today. We've got 3 essential jobs today and a lot of little ones we must chip away at bit by bit." "Speak up a bit, Mac," Cynthia, a tall, skinny woman in her early 30s, called out from the back. "Sorry, would you all move in a bit, please? First, I need 3 volunteers to make the hen house secure. Who knows anything about carpentry? Or who was a handyman around the house?" "I can do that, Mac," Lenny said, stepping forwards. "Sorry, Lenny. Thanks, but I've got another party I want you to lead. I want you to take 2 women out hunting with—" "Lead?" Julie called out. "Lead 2 of us women?" she demanded. "He's just a kid. He shouldn't be in charge of us grown-ups." Mac ignored her. "Lenny, will you pick 2 women to go with you? Come to me after and I'll get you rifles and ammo." "Mac," Lenny began uncertainly, "I don't know anything about hunting. All I can do is load the rifle. I've never shot anything before. I don't want to let you down. Are you sure you want me doing this? Tomo and Half-Screw were in the army. They'd be better for this, wouldn't they?" "See?" Julie carried out. Mac hesitated. "Half-Screw, are you up for leading a hunting party? Can I rely on you?" Half-Screw stepped out of the group. He shrugged. "I can take 2 women hunting if you want me to, so long as they can keep quiet. And I can shoot whatever we find. Maybe even teach the women to shoot, if they don't start crying about killing something or whatever. But I don't know where to look, don't know about tracking or tracks. I want to eat meat as much as anybody else, so I'll give it a go, but I'm just telling you." Mac appealed to the assembly. "Anybody know anything about hunting or tracking, about wild animals? Anything?" Anna put her hand up. "Maybe this isn't help, but my father used to go hunting in Poland. I never went with him, but he talked about his trips afterwards, where they find the boars and the deers, how they hide it and things like that." She ended with an uplift, as if asking a question. Mac raised his eyebrows at Half-Screw, who nodded approval. "And I'd like to come too. Learn how to shoot. Carol called out. Carol was about 19, slim, with dark hair down to her shoulders. She'd been a secretary before. But, Carol, I was going to ask you to be on my team, Lenny called out. Sorry, Lenny, I like you and everything, but going out hunting is way more fun, interesting, than staying here wood-bothering. She looked at Half-Screw and Mac nervously. And I can definitely keep quiet when I need to. I used to go hiking with Mum and Dad in the Lake District. Dad would spot wild animals and birds, and we'd have to freeze. Half-Screw nodded again, and Carol walked over to join him and Anna. Good. Lenny, pick 2 women you want to work with and get started. The rest of us will divide up those small jobs and work through them for the rest of the day. While I go with Half-Screw to get the guns, could you all please get into groups of 2 and 3, depending on the task, and get started? Carol was excited to learn how to shoot, so she took a shotgun in case they found pheasants or small game. Half-Screw took a rifle and the ammunition for the 2 guns. Anna was reluctant to even carry a gun. When Mac returned to the group, only a half dozen had formed teams and already begun working. What's the matter with you? I'd hoped to see everybody busy. Why aren't you? Shouting and arguing began at once. Some were arguing over who was to be in charge of their team. Some about which tasks they didn't want. And too many women wanted to be in Mac's team and were waiting for him to come back to decide. Why must all the leaders be men? Ashanti challenged, with Pet echoing her. Mac shook his head in disbelief. Can't you see that you can't all work with me and somebody has to do the boring jobs? He clasped his head. Can't you just cooperate without someone having to order you around like Ricky did? Palms wide, he appealed to them again. You are going to have to learn that things are different now. You're all adults. We all have to cooperate, or else there won't even be a farm and all that. I'm going to check my traps and gather the wild foods with Ali and Pascal, and you must sort yourselves into groups by yourselves. He left them arguing, and the 3 walked into the woods. After they'd walked just a few minutes and were out of the other's earshot, Pascal turned on Mac, planting a hand on his chest and stopping him. I told them you were going to organize them, and what did you do? You left them all doing what they were before, nothing. But I told them to get into groups and get started. I told them off for just standing around, Mac protested. Don't you see? Pascal rolled her eyes. That was not enough. They need telling, leading. Not everybody's the same. Not everybody needs ordering around, Mac replied, taking a step back. Correct. And the ones who don't need it were already working or volunteered when you asked. The others do need it, or you won't get any work out of them. Mac pursed his lips uncomfortably, looking first at his feet and then the sky. Pascal waited, a faint smile playing over her lips. Birdsong filled the silence. Am I getting through to you, Mac? It sounds as though I might be. Pascal softly broke into his thoughts. Mac slowly lifted his face to hers. His face telegraphed the unease he was clearly feeling. Pascal exclaimed, Pah, why do I bother? You will have to be much stronger than this if you are going to lead them. We cannot survive with a weak leader, and you are weak. She turned and stormed away, exasperating. I will go around the other foraging route, the one in Danebridge Wood. I will be about 2 hours. You 2 go around your traps and do the plantation mushroom trail. She walked off briskly before turning. And I will make you a bet, Mac. You wait. When we rendezvous, half those jobs will not even be started, let alone completed. As Pascal walked away, Ali grabbed Mac's hand and squeezed it. Are you okay? She said. Silly question. Of course you're not. She's wrong, you know, Mac said, looking over her shoulder to Pascal's retreating figure. I'm not being weak. I'm being democratic. Or maybe I mean fair. I'm not going to be like Ricky. Everybody should be treated with respect. I mean, how can I expect them to treat me with respect if I don't show it to them? Chapter 13. The sun was marking midday when Mac and Ali returned to the manor house. They were each carrying a canvas bag full of wild plants, a good haul. Mac's bag held several pounds of rosebay willow herb, inner stems and young shoots. Joan had once told him they were edible and could be gathered almost all year round. Hung around his neck were a rabbit and a pheasant. "Mac, if we make it to autumn, when we do, that's the mushroom season, isn't it?" "I think so. Well, that's when people go out on mushroom courses. If only we had someone—" "See, what did I say?" Pascal shouted from the picnic table, where she was separating her own bag of wild foods. She marched over them so quickly her apron tail streamed belong her. "See, what did I say?" Pascal shouted from the picnic table, where she was separating her own bag of wild foods. She marched over to them so quickly her apron tail streamed out behind her. Oh. "See, what did I say?" Pascal shouted from the picnic table, where she was separating her own bag of wild foods. She marched over to them so quickly her apron trails streamed out behind her along with her long black mane. "Look!" she shrieked, pointing to the men and women sitting at the picnic tables, scattered around the manor house courtyard. Mac looked further than the arc of Pascal's arm and saw Cynthia and Bindi digging a new latrine pit in the corner of the courtyard. He scanned who was seated at the tables and noted Maria and Mandeep weren't there, but Colin, Ashanti, Pet and Anna and Julia were. A few faces looked nervously at him as he approached. "Colin," Mac snapped, "why aren't all of you working? And where are Mandeep and Maria?" Some of the women looked relieved and focused their attention on Colin, who leaned back in his chair. Colin was thin and stoop-shouldered, with a pronounced forehead and a hairline that had long since receded all the way. He must have resisted Julie's hairdressing attention, because the hair above his ears sprung out to the side like wings on his head. Out of the corner of his eye, Mac saw Bindi throw her spade to the ground and march towards the group. Bindi was tall and raw-boned. At around 5'11", she stood taller than most of the men. She had no curves, and whatever she wore, Mac never caught himself needing a second look. Her short brown hair was perpetually spiky and untamable. But Bindi had the gift of authentic friendliness and got along with everyone. Her Australian accent and smiles made the coldest day a little sunnier. But today there were no smiles. Her face was twisted with anger. "Hi, Mac," Colin replied. "Lovely sunny day, isn't it? We didn't start on those jobs because, well, we weren't sure which one was the most important, and we didn't want to waste our time and effort starting the wrong one first." "So you wasted your time and effort doing nothing instead?" Bindi snarled, pointing a finger in Colin's face. "Kick the drongo's arse, Mac," she roared. Colin turned to face Bindi. "I'm not sure I like your tone, Bindi. I had hoped we'd be living in a non-violent community now we don't have Ricky anymore. Notwithstanding the violent manner you disposed of him in, of course," he added, turning his back on Bindi and toward Mac. "Tone?" Bindi shrieked, her knuckles white on the back of the picnic chair. "I'll give you something to dislike even more, you lazy sponger," she spluttered. "Mac," she appealed, making an effort to calm down. "While you were away collecting, me and Cynthia came over to tell this lazy shower," she spat the words, looking at the still-seated group, "to get on with the jobs you gave us. Maria and Mandeep listened. They're out in the woods bringing back firewood." She indicated a small pile of logs by the kitchen wall. "But these wouldn't budge. Colin gave us that bullshit excuse that they didn't know which job to start with, but it was obvious they just wanted to sit in the sunshine. I said they could both start both jobs. There's 5 of them, enough for 2 teams easily, but—" Colin jumped up hastily to interrupt her. "Yes, but we didn't think you'd be as long as this, Mac. Anyway, so you're back now. let's get started." He nodded to the sitting women, who began to stand up. "Which of those jobs should we start first? Making a workshop in the long outhouse? Or building the raised beds for vegetables over there?" Mac fixed Colin with a quizzical stare. His eyebrows furrowed. He stroked his chin. "You can start with the outhouse." "Did you have a workshop in your garage before?" he asked. "No, I didn't have a garage. Or a car. And don't you think you're being rather sexist, asking me that question, and not these women? Couldn't they have had a tool bench in their garage just as easily as us men?" Yes, sorry," Max stuttered, taking a step back. He turned to the women. "What about you? Did any of you have anything like I described last night?" "My ex-husband had one," Julie said. "He was always in it on the weekend, pottering about, mending something or other. And in the evenings, too," she reminisced. "But I never touched it," she added quickly. "I'm not getting my hands covered in oil or whatever." Mac raised his eyebrows as he looked at the other women questioningly. They shook their heads. "My boyfriend used to help me get him to work on his motorbikes and cars." "My boyfriend used to get me to help him to work on his motorbikes and cars," Pet stepped forward. "He'd tell me which tools to bring in while he was underneath them." "That'll have to do," Mac concluded. "Take a shanty with you. You don't have to build up a whole workshop in half a day, obviously. Just get started. We want to end up with a place where we can mend everything that breaks and build everything we need. That means we'll need every tool we can find. A vice, a lathe, a sharpening wheel." He paused, observing the women's stricken faces. "You don't expect us to do all that," they said in unison. "Won't they need an electric socket to plug them into?" Mac rolled his eyes. "Yes, they will. And no, we don't have electricity yet, obviously." "Must you be so sarcastic, Mac?" Ashanti said, her hands planted on her hips. "We haven't even started yet, and you're criticising us." Mac began to draw in a deep breath, but stopped halfway. "Yes, okay, then. You're right. Sorry." Beside him, he heard a snort from Pascal. He ignored her. "Can't you help get us started?" Pet pleaded. "You know what it is you want building. I mean, you'll probably be doing the repairs and mending and whatever anyway, won't you?" "If I did that, I might as well do the job myself. I've got to divide all these jobs up somehow. Can't you see that?" Mac's voice was high, pleading. "I can't do everything myself." "Ah, yes. The indispensable man is in charge," came Colin's mocking voice. "I was wondering how long it would take you to start acting like the king of the castle." "You beat me to saying it!" Ashanti's voice was triumphant. "But I was thinking exactly the same thing." "Are you still here, Colin?" Pascal's acidic voice broke in. "Are you still pretending that you don't know what your job is today? Nobody will be accusing you of being indispensable." "Or a man." Colin sat up stiff, his face reddening. Pascal's words had hit him like a bucket of ice-cold water in his face. "Yes, well, Pascal," he pronounced her name with the correct French inflection, standing up and brushing off imaginary droplets. He struggled for a comeback for a few seconds, his head quivering like a chicken in a farmyard, before giving up. "Come on, Julie." He reached his hand out. "And Linda, let's not give them the satisfaction." "Satisfaction!" Pascal jeered. She gave an incredulous laugh. "You can keep your satisfaction. We will settle for some work." "Right," added Mac. "And you can manage without Julie. She's needed in the kitchen to prep this for Joan," he said, holding out his canvas bag. Julie took it and walked quickly into the manor house, not looking back. Seeing that, Colin's head dropped and he walked towards the wood store, Linda following behind him. Mac turned toward Pascal and nodded his thanks, and they both set off to where Bindi and Cynthia were digging. "But aren't you going to help us?" Pet called after them. "No. Clear off and do it yourself," Pascal said. Mac has more than enough to do, leading real rabble. She nodded in the direction of the retreating Colin, then pointedly extended the gesture to include Pet. Please, Mac, she wheedled, we need you to get us started. A pathetic expression appeared on her face. Mac froze, then his head went back resignedly. All right, I'll get you started, he capitulated. He began to speak with Pascal. Do you mind? But she ignored him and continued to the hole for the long drop toilet. Mac started after Pascal, but a call from Pet halted him. Mac, you were going to show me what to do in the workshop. Us, corrected Ashanti. Show us. Mac turned and walked to the outhouse that was to be converted, the two women following him. The day's results were patchy. Some teams completed their tasks well and came to Mac to ask for the next one. Others didn't. After half finishing one job, they moved on to the next one themselves, choosing work from the previous evening's discussion. The hunters returned at dark, empty-handed. Half-Screw handed the guns back to Mac and walked past him, dark-faced, throwing a contemptuous glare behind him at Anna. She stammered an explanation. I couldn't shoot an animal. I just know I couldn't. I didn't even want to hold the gun, but he made me try. Can I just help track instead? Pascal worked with Bindi and Cynthia all day. On the occasions they passed near to Mac, she didn't look at or answer him when he tried to speak with her. By the time Joan rang the bell for dinner, he noticed her hands and arms were covered in mud and scratches. At some point she'd gathered her hair up and wrapped it into a tea-towel bandana.